Hello, everyone. This is Danica Joan, and I'm here with Kelly Ford, one of our co-parenting instructors here in Central Florida. I figured we could use this time at Custody Matters discussing topics, what your experience of dealing with the parents who come in. They have to take this class. I think all of the United States, there are some form of a co-parenting instruction class that parents who are going through custody situations, establishing custody, have to take the class. And when I say co-parenting class, a lot of times people refer to it as a divorce class, and then they get frustrated because there's many parents who are establishing custody but have never been married, and yet they still have to take the class. So welcome, Kelly.
Thank you.
So Kelly just finished a co-parenting class this morning, and she does an amazing job. Her background is in psychology, so she really gets down to the heart of the matter in dealing with parents and their situations. We get all kinds of parenting situations. Can you share with us a little bit about what kind of parents come walking in your door? What's their attitude?
You know what? Most of the time, their attitude is one of, they're afraid. They're living in the worst time of their life up to this point, in all likelihood. So when they walk through my door, I am completely aware that these are people that are looking for answers. And so I have to admit there's a bit of pressure there, because I don't want to be a waste of anyone's time. So I think that we really take the time to try to cater it to individual situations to make it worth their while to be there. That's my goal.
Awesome. So what happens when you have a parent? Because it's not like they wanted to be there. What happens when you've got somebody that doesn't want to be there? They don't like their ex. They have all kinds of story around the abusiveness of their ex. What kind of advice do you offer them?
And to be honest with you, every situation is so extremely unique. It's hard to just give a blanket advice. But one thing that I do ask all parents to consider is to remember back to a time when, for whatever reason, you loved this person enough to have a baby with them and raise a child and make a family. And whether you felt like it was a choice or not at the time, it truly was your choice. So now that you entered into that part of it, here we are at the other end of the spectrum. And I talk to them most about understanding that abuse towards them inside the marriage, yes, it was detrimental to their child, but you have to really dig deep and ask yourself, would that co-parent ever victimize that child? Sometimes the answer is legitimately yes. In those cases, there is not much else you can do. You can't subject a child to that. But in a lot of cases, and I mean, if you really dig and you look, that your co-parent isn't likely to abuse your child if you're honest with yourself. In those cases, honesty also requires you to take the next step, which is to try to at least let them have some type of contact and relationship with their child for your child's sake.
So I hear what you're saying. I hear that sometimes it's very difficult to separate emotionally from the abuse and abandonment and all that as a spouse or an ex-spouse, and how it is that doesn't always mean that just because it was an unhealthy, dysfunctional, abusive couple relationship means that it would translate into parent-child relationship with the same kind of mistreatment. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. I mean, just because you might be a mom inside of a married relationship that threw a drink on your husband in a fight does not mean that you would necessarily be the kind of mom to go off on your child and throw a drink in their face. As a matter of fact, it's a completely different relationship. the level of dysfunction doesn't exist between you and your child. It exists between you and your co-parent.
I got it. Yeah. And we certainly advocate that it's important to set an example. I used to share with my stepson when he was a young father, I'd say, these first 2 years of your child's life is training you in what's acceptable to do and say in front of your child. Because even though that little infant may not know what swear words are, may not know what a bottle of alcohol is or anything like that, if you bring them around it when those things around your child before the age of 2, I guarantee you're not going to suddenly abruptly say, oh, they're at the age of awareness. We can't do that anymore.
Exactly. And that's the thing. To be authentically parents, you have to take into consideration things that you would have never thought of prior to that time in your life. And considering that we now know at this point your child is probably one of the only till death do you part relationships you'll actually have, you might as well do everything you can to make it right.
I refer to my children as the love of my life.
That's exactly what they are.
They really are. So something came to my mind about, so here's the thing. Sometimes when parents are going through, they're trying to break free, they're just feeling very suffocated in the relationship, and then now that they're away from them, they're in the process of divorce, or they're in the process of establishing their own independence from their ex-partner. It's my understanding that a lot of times these risky behaviors with these parents kind of go on the rise.
Absolutely.
Alcohol, women, just let me be free. And
gambling, like yes, sex, drinking, whatever it is. And you know what? There's a reason for it. And it's because, you didn't enter into the relationship to ever end up across the table from me. You never thought you were going to have to meet me. Otherwise, you probably would have entered into the relationship. So having said that, you aren't just mourning the end of your marital relationship. It's more than that. You're mourning you have to let go of what your projected future with that person was. So you're mourning 2 deaths, the death of the relationship and the death of your initial dream of what you thought you were going to be doing with this person for the rest of your life. So knowing that we are not comfortable feeling all of those feelings at one time as humans, it's so overwhelming. That is why all of the risky behaviors go up. Anything to take your mind off of or help numb some of the feelings that you're having to deal with. If you want to make somebody really act out, you mess with their ability to have a relationship with their children. And all bad choices just go through the roof.
Yeah. So the thing is, I'm sure you've gotten people in your class that have said, they're an alcoholic, they're a druggie, they're this, they're that. Yeah. And I am taking it upon myself to be the gatekeeper to keep that other parent away from my child, because that could, damage my child. And it's a difficult thing to give advice about that, because, obviously in a perfect world, kids need to have love, like a loving relationship with both parents. Mm-hmm. And of course, that doesn't mean that they should be subjected to abuse and neglect as well. I know that sometimes Kelly is really good as far as, keeping a hold of the comments and the groups and things like that. And there have been some people, I believe that if you may have joined this group because you got one of our ads, that and I've seen some of the comments of the people that probably did not join this group, but that were very bitter and hateful and basically said, no, kids don't need both. it kind of, I mean, it bothered me. It hurt because I wanted to say that, of course, you wouldn't want to subject your child to abuse and neglect.
Yeah, that's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
But, I have read the comments, and I'm always surprised because the level of bitterness, it gets deep. And what it shows is that anyone can make mistakes. If within the marriage, or within the relationship, your significant other constantly abused drugs and alcohol around your child, you can bet that it will continue after. That's called a pattern. You've seen it. But if in the relationship that never happened, and after the relationship was over and in the chaos, your co-parent went a little crazy, and now you're going to use that as a reason to say, okay, if the child goes over there, they're going to be surrounded by this. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It doesn't have to be that way. I need to go get a Kleenex.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Thank you so much. And I think this is a good time to complete this session of Custody Matters. I appreciate your time. I hope that's been informative. If you have any questions, just private message me.
I didn't know she was going to end. Bye.
All right. Be well and have a great weekend.